So, according to Vedic scriptures, including Charak Samhita, Atma or Purusha has some basic characteristics. They are described in Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. We have already spoken that it is a conscious entity, it is eternal. It has the ability to know, it has agency and experience. But these characteristics cannot manifest unless there is a body. And at present we have material body, but if you become liberated, which is called mukti or moksha, then you have a spiritual body. And therefore there are two divisions of psychology in the Vedic scriptures, one dealing with the material body, material mind, material ego, and the other which deals with the spiritual mind, spiritual ego, spiritual body. So these characteristics of the Atma or Purusha, they manifest through the mind and body. Because in the present state we are identifying with the body, we do not think that we are separate from the body. And therefore we do speak in terms like, I am sad, which actually refers to the mind, that my mind is feeling sad. Or I am sick, which refers to the body, my body is not healthy. Or I am tall, I am small, I am fat, I am thin. These are all related to body because of identification. So we are actually superimposing the characteristics of our body or mind onto ourselves. This is called superimposition or adhyas or adhyaropa. It also happens other way around, that we also superimpose the characteristics of the self onto our mind and body. So one of the most basic characteristic is that Atma or Purusha is eternal. And when we superimpose that characteristic onto the body, then we want to keep the body as eternal, or at least we think that I am not going to die. And thus we have the greatest fear of death. These basic instincts, the instinct to survive, an instinct to fear, the instinct to engage in sexual activity, to create, procreate, these are all actually related, or they are outcomes of the superimposition of the self onto mind and body. Because body is not eternal. We know that body undergoes modifications. We have seen our own bodies changing. We have also seen or heard or read of people dying. So on one side we know that body is not eternal. On the other hand, we don't want it to die. And we have a feeling that even if people are dying around me, I will survive. I will continue. And we make this effort consciously or unconsciously to continue to live. So this sense of survival, this tendency to exist, this is one of our most fundamental instinct, characteristic, nobody has trained us in it. We did not learn it in any school. We did not learn it from our parents. We are born with it because this is the characteristic which we have superimposed from the Purusha onto the body. So therefore we have attachment to food because food is very important for my survival. When a baby is born, then she does not know anything, but one thing she knows, and this is not only for human babies but all babies in any species of life. They know how to eat. This is without any training. So this is most crucial for survival, and therefore there is big attachment for food. And we have discussed earlier that how problems come from food because of overeating or eating wrong things or eating things at wrong time. So eating is a very important activity in every species of life. If you see birds, beasts, and most of the time when they are awake, they spend only for eating. Because for them, survival is the real thing. They don't know anything more than that. They don't have other functions like acquiring knowledge or creating something in the world. They don't do this because their awareness is not developed much. Their awareness is the basic awareness. And therefore those societies which are very much concerned about eating, then you should know that society, not only an individual but society as a whole, is only at that level of animal instinct. So now, although we think that we have progressed a lot, but if you see, previously there were not so many restaurants, so many places for eating. So much variety of food was never available to human beings as it is available now. There is so much variety, so much work, so much effort which has gone just into the food. So this, we may think that it is progress, but actually this is the most basic instinct. This is, if you see it from the chakra point of view, then this is related to the lowest chakra. This is the Mooladhara chakra. And Mooladhara is called Mooladhara because Moola means foundation or the basis, the root, Adhara, the support. So this is the supporting root chakra, the food. And there is so much fascination for it. People are all the time eating. They are eating at home, eating while driving, eating in the office. So go to the theater, sitting and eating. So eating is a very big activity in life. You go to big cities, there are so many places to eat and people just sitting, eating and chatting. So this is related to our survival, and it is not some big deal that somebody has become advanced just because there is so much food available. And then the next one is the sex. It is related to the next chakra, the Swadhisthana chakra, but it is also related to the survival only. Because originally the purpose of sex is procreation, which means that you continue to exist through your progeny. And now human beings may have found ways and means to stop procreation, but in the other species of life, they still do it naturally. They still eat in a natural way, they still procreate in a natural way. Human beings have become unnatural in that sense. Because the enjoyment, just as in case of food, enjoyment is the side bonus. That is the bonus given by Prakriti, that you eat, you get some relish from it, so that you can exist. That is the trick of the Prakriti for the Purusha, to keep the Purusha entangled. So same trick is also there in the sex, that you feel some pleasure in it, so that you can procreate. And this way Purusha continues from one life to another life, one life to another life. So food is for my own self, sex is to continue so that the society whole can continue. But as we have become unnatural about our food, and we are eating many unnatural things, then in the sex also there is so much unnatural way of having it. And both are giving problem. And they both are interrelated. Food and sex have a very intimate relationship. And the whole society is very much preoccupied with thought of food and sex. And this is the basic animal instinct, I call it, because human instincts begin when you go higher up. These two lower chakras, these two lower activities, they are common in every species of life. And then the third one is fear. So we have various types of fear. Fear of losing the job, fear of losing my name or fame, fear of losing relatives, friends. But all this fear is ultimately related with my existence, with my survival, with my body. Because when money is there, then I have a confidence that I will survive. Then I can buy things, especially I can buy food, I can have nice home to give shelter to my body. Same with position. If I have position in the society, if I have name, then I can survive better in the society. If I am in some trouble, some difficult situation, then I can get help from people because of my position, because of my power. So it is all related with that. So therefore we have made so many arrangements to protect ourselves from fear of death. We have developed medicines, we are doing a lot of research, we are also doing research how not to get old. We have invented wrinkle-free creams, or some tonics, some power drinks. So all this is related with my survival, so that I don't have to die, or I don't have to become old. I remain youthful. Because the Purusha does not become old, although it is the oldest, and it never dies, and it never falls sick. It is eternal. So all these things I superimpose onto my body, that I don't want to die, I don't want to become sick, I don't want to get old, diseased. And they are all related with my existence, that I continue to exist. And because I identify with the body, so I want to keep the body alive. So this is the most basic and this is nothing advanced about it. We have made different ways of eating or different ways of having sex. It's nothing great. Animals are also doing that, because ultimately it doesn't matter how you eat, whether you eat with fork and knife or you eat with your hand, eat sitting down or walking, or the food goes into the stomach. Same is with sex. So making advancement in these things is not real advancement. The next thing, the next characteristic is that Atma or Purusha has the ability to know. Therefore, the next very powerful instinct which we have and which makes us different from other species of life is the knowledge which we can acquire, and we can pass on knowledge to others. Animals, they cannot do that. They cannot speak, they cannot learn from their forefathers and then add on to that knowledge and progress further. So human beings have progressed a lot because they can invent something, and then the new generation can start from that point and invent more and add more knowledge to that. In case of animals, they are born the way they are. They learn basic survival, which is food, sex, protection from enemies, from dangers, and then that's it. But human beings go beyond that. They acquire knowledge and they can pass on this knowledge to their next generation. So therefore they have advanced. Now that is different thing whether that advancement is only related with survival, food, sex, etc. You can have better homes now, more comfortable, better than what our forefathers had. But it is only related with same survival thing, which is common with animals. So any society, any so-called culture which is only at the level of food, sex, housing, security, weapons, developed on this, then it is nothing better than animals. It is not very great. Of course you may say, well, we are more comfortable now, but still you are at the bodily level. You have not come to realize your potential to understand your own self. So knowledge primarily is used for this purpose. Primarily people are using knowledge only for food, sex and protection, shelter, getting rid of the fear from enemies, from diseases, from natural calamities. So human beings have made great strides in this field, much more than what animals. But the flip side is also there, that they have also become more expert in killing, because there is always a misuse. There we have three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. So it is sattva, rajas is that which creates, sattva is that which maintains, and tamas is that which destroys. So there are also people who are tamasic by nature, and they also have facility or access to this knowledge, and the instruments developed originally, they may be developed for the purpose of our own protection, but they can use it for destruction. So therefore that danger is also available to human beings, which is not there for animals, because animals are not inventing anything, and therefore they also don't invent killing. There is no terrorism involved in that. So that is because we have not understood the purpose of life, and if we revolve only about the physical body, then these types of difficulties and problems will come. But then, since I am self-centered and it is natural that I want to protect myself at the expense of others, because I am limited to myself. When I am under the influence of Rajas and Tamas, then I cannot think beyond myself. It is only when you are situated in Sattva, then you can think of people, you can think beyond your own needs, your own body, you can think for the society. Because only Sattva can think like that. Because Sattva gives you a sense of unity. As we know that Mahatattva is in Sattva. So Mahatattva gives you sense of identification with this whole society. You feel that I am related with the society and therefore I do something for the society. What a common person who is very much in tamas does for one's own self, they do it for the society. So they think of doing welfare to others. They take pleasure in that. So that is natural because of the gunas which are influencing them. And then the third characteristic of Atma is Ananda, bliss, happiness. So we also have natural tendency to be happy. And that's what I said, that Dev Jivin, the long life which we spoke in the first lecture, is not just to live long but to acquire knowledge. So Dirgha Jivitam implies that first you survive, then you have knowledge, because knowledge is needed for survival. But knowledge is also for a higher purpose, that is to understand yourself, and that leads you to happiness. So happy life, healthy life, long life, they are all interrelated. So these are coming from the characteristic of the Purusha. So everybody has this tendency to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer. So when we identify with the body, then our most basic instinct is that I survive. And even if I have to go through some trouble for that, I will do that. That is the basic. But if I can avoid suffering and survive, that is better. Therefore we invent things so that we can survive happily. Because happiness is superior to survival. Survival is not a goal in itself. Knowledge also is not a goal in itself. Happiness is a goal in itself. So you want to survive. Why? So that you can be happy. You want to acquire knowledge so that you can be happy. Why do you study Charak Samhita? So that you can be happy. Not just for the sake of studying. But why do you want to be happy? Just for the sake of being happy. So there is nothing beyond happiness. Happiness is the ultimate purpose or ultimate instinct. So these are the three basic instincts which we have, and as you progress from one to second to the third, then you are actually progressing in your awareness, in your consciousness. So knowledge, although you may say knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but that also is giving you happiness. If I live but I am not happy, then I may like to commit suicide, which seems to go against my basic instinct, because everybody has the instinct to live, to exist. So then why do people commit suicide? So people commit suicide when they realize that they cannot live happily. So that means just living itself is not the ultimate purpose, but living happy is the purpose. So they are committing suicide thinking that in the next life, even if they don't have an idea, they think that there will be some happiness in future. And even if they don't have an idea, at least they think that by this action, by the action of committing suicide, they are bringing suffering to an end. So therefore, if we analyze ultimately, then there are two purposes to life. This is how the human mind works. This is the human psychology. Number one, I want to be happy, and therefore whatever I do it for the sake of happiness. And number two, I don't want to suffer. So whatever I do, I plan in such a way that I will not suffer. And even if I have to go through the suffering, I may sacrifice my happiness and go through some pain, some trouble, if that is going to assure me some happiness in the end. Because sometimes we do that also. Usually people go for immediate happiness, but then you see people undertaking some trouble so that they will get happiness in future, which could be in this life, next life. People also take trouble thinking that I may not be happy in this life, but then I will be happy, I will go to heaven. So heaven is a concept of happiness. So this is the basic psychology. And consciously or unconsciously, we are working for these two principles. So if I want to be, if now I see it from the happiness point of view, then I will say that even survival is secondary to happiness. I want to be happy, and if I have to be happy, then I have to survive. I cannot be happy without surviving. So therefore surviving becomes secondary to happiness. And if I want to be happy, then I have to know how to be happy. Or I have to perform actions which will make me happy, and for that I have to know how to do those actions properly. Therefore knowledge also becomes secondary to happiness. So ultimately, happiness is what we seek. That's what we are looking for. That is our real drive. And along with that it comes that I don't want to suffer. So all my actions, all my thoughts, all my plans, all my desires ultimately culminate in these two things, that I want to be happy and I don't want to suffer. So whatever I do, whether I am eating, I am having sex, or I am going for a job, I am studying, I am going for a picnic, I am doing business, I am raising a family, the ultimate purpose is this one. Even when we are saying that I do some welfare activity for others, I do it because that makes me happy. One may not say it that I am doing it for my own happiness, but actually that's the purpose. And even when people sacrifice themselves, they may sacrifice themselves for the sake of their country or for the sake of their family members. Sometimes people do that, so you say, well, why are they doing it? This is also because they feel happy with that. Unless you feel happy, you don't do it. So there are two ways to acquire happiness. One is that you acquire happiness by making yourself happy. Another is that you acquire happiness by making someone else happy. So when you do things to make yourself happy, that is called selfishness. And when you do actions to make someone else happy and feel happy with it, that is called love. So this is the difference. The goal is same. The person who is being very selfish, his or her goal is also to be happy. And the person who is very renounced and very dedicated to others, dedicated to doing welfare, very generous, charitable, social worker, their goal is also happy, but the process or the means are different. And one is appreciated by others and one is not appreciated. So, since my purpose is happiness, then I must know how to get it. Because another thing which we see very commonly is that although we want to be happy, but mostly we fail. Because we don't see many people who are really happy. You go around, and even when people are smiling and they look happy, when you really get close to them, then you realize that actually it's not true. Everybody is having some trouble. From far, many people look very happy. You see the celebrities, big film actors, sports people, musicians. So they look very happy when they are on the stage. But in their personal life, that's not true. So, you know that, who was that, Michael Jackson? So, on the stage he looked, everybody praised him, but then his personal life was quite miserable. And that is the story with many people. So why is this happening? Because of ignorance. Knowledge does not mean knowledge which is just related how to eat, how to have sex, more sex, super sex. All these things are going on. That's not knowledge. Real knowledge is to know who you are. To know yourself, to know your mind, to know your body, to know your intelligence, to know your ego, and to know you as Purusha. This is what means to be knowledgeable. Because unless you have this knowledge, you are bound to do actions in your life which will make you miserable. And because people do not have this knowledge, most people do not have this knowledge. Therefore, most people, they suffer. We have misconceptions that if I have a bigger car, then I'll be happy. If I have a beautiful partner, then I'll be happy. If I have more money, I'm a millionaire, I'll be happy. If I live in a particular place, I'll be happy. But happiness does not come from these things. Happiness does not come by doing some of these material activities or by acquiring material objects, material relations. This is not what gives me happiness. These are just ways of getting into trouble. So real happiness begins when you make effort to know yourself. To know yourself as distinct from everything which is made of Prakriti. Whether it is your body, your mind, your senses, your intellect, your ego, your possessions, your relations, your position, everything. These are all material. So unless you come to understand this point, then you go through cycles, sometimes happy, sometimes distressed, sometimes little pleasure, sometimes more pain. But if you make a balance sheet of the life, because some people who are young and healthy, they may not agree with me. They will say, what you are saying, I am happy. But actually, if you make a balance sheet of your whole life, because if you are young, you still have many years to live, and just wait. So as your body wears out, when you hit 40, then problems begin. May begin even before that, but usually after 40 the body starts dwindling. And then you still may have another 40-50 years to know. So when you are about 90 years, then you make a balance sheet of your life and see how much you enjoyed and how much you suffered, beginning from your childhood. So we have a tendency to forget our suffering and remember what we realized, because we have such an intense desire to be happy that we tend to forget our sufferings and cling on to our pleasurable moments. So then we may think that we have just enjoyed or we are enjoying, but it may not be true. The reality is different, and this is with most people. So only wise people, those who are learned really, those who have this wisdom, viveka, this discrimination between prakriti and purusha, they only are truly happy. So that's why Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra he says, Dukkhameva sarva vivekina. One who has viveka, one who has the sense of discrimination, then he sees that everything is just suffering. The so-called happiness is also suffering because it is the seed for suffering. Happiness is just suffering which looks different. So we have to understand this and experience it in our own life. Because when you will experience it, then you can also help others, including your patients. The patients also should understand this. That is the real treatment. The physical treatment, balancing doshas is fine, but real treatment is balancing the mind. And mind cannot be balanced unless one understands these things. So this ahar nidra bhaya maithunam cha samanam etat pashubhe naranam jnanam nita yasham adhiko vishesho jnanena hinam pasubhe samanam. This verse, very nice verse, it says that food, sleep and protection and procreation. It says these are common to both human beings as well as non-humans, subhumans. They all do this. See, there is no difference. And if we are doing only these four things in our life, then we are at the same level. Because level is not that we walk on two legs and they are walking on four legs, but actually where is our awareness, where is our consciousness, and what are we doing? Don't think that you can enjoy more by eating your pizza or pasta sitting in a restaurant than, say, a cow grazing in the field. Maybe she is enjoying more than you, eating fresh grass. Or don't think that you enjoy sex more than some animal, some dog having sex. So what makes human beings different is jnana, the viveka, this understanding, this knowledge about prakriti and purusha, knowledge about the human mind, how it works, and then to act, behave properly to realize this fact. That is what makes us human beings, that's what makes us different than animals, and that's what leads to true happiness. Then you can be happy in any circumstance, in any place, because you have no reason to be unhappy. Then you can undergo all types of troubles and still smile. And smile means actual smile, means smiling from your heart, even if not smiling from your lips. So not this plastic smile which people give when inside they are suffering. That is not the smile. So these are the basic principles, and when we identify with the body, then we want to maintain it then because of that comes raga and dvesha. We have certain attachments, likes and dislikes. So we like things which are favorable to my body, my mind, I like that. And things which are not favorable to my mind, I dislike that. And if someone creates an unfavorable position for me, then I get angry. I hate that person, or I hate that situation, or I fear that situation. But if something is favorable to me, then I want more of it, then I become greedy about it. So all this anger, greed, fear, hatred, envy, jealousy, all these emotions, these sentiments, they become manifest in human being because of ignorance about the self. If I actually can understand myself, then I don't have to have fear unnecessarily. Many times, most of the time, we are in fear which is not needed. So it's just a piece of ignorance. Or we get into anxiety. So that is the importance of knowledge. That is what Charaka is giving, or Bhagavad Gita is giving us. So these books like Bhagavad Gita, they are book of psychology. We consider them as religious books or spiritual books. But actually they are the books which are speaking more about the human mind. Then they also talk about the Purusha, which is a spiritual being, and how to understand that. But there is a lot of discussion about the mind and how the mind works. So that we have to understand. When we study Charaka, we should study it from this point of view. Not just knowing the formulas, compositions, medicines, but to study the mind, to study the patients also, why they are getting sick. Because many diseases are coming because of all this raga and dvesha. People are suffering because of their attachments, and they are suffering. They become attached to things. So you become attached to your relations, your possessions. So in the past, people used to be more attached to human beings. So there were bigger families and less possessions. Now the houses have become bigger, families have become smaller. Because it is more difficult to deal with another living being than piece of matter. If you have your computer, or if you have your TV set, then they don't bother you. If you put them in one place, they remain there. But if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, then you cannot expect them to just sit in one place and come back after a few hours and they are in the same place. They will be doing something. And they also expect some reciprocation from you. This TV and your sofa or your car, they don't expect any reciprocation from you. So people, they find it now difficult to be with another person. So that's why they don't get married. And if they get married, they don't want to have children. Because children is a headache. And you have to spend a lot of money to raise a child. And you think with that much money I can buy some more object which will give me pleasure and not trouble me. A child will trouble you while growing. So naturally now the families are becoming what they call as nuclear families, and there are no children, and that also may not be very stable. So this is all because we are becoming more and more attached to our own bodies. We are becoming more and more selfish. So So therefore we cannot relate with others, because if I become very centered only about myself, then I don't care about your pains and pleasure, your happiness, your emotions. I'm only worried about myself. And if I want to get some pleasure, some happiness from you, then I may have to act, I may have to compromise some of my selfishness. And if I cannot do that, because for that also I have to control my mind, then our relations don't work. So that's why there are a lot of problems in human relations. But the fact is that you cannot feel very satisfied with just inert matter. If you don't have human relations, then you don't feel very fulfilled. So therefore they are inventing things like Facebook, so that you can have a friend without being in physical proximity. So you avoid the problem part of having a human being next to you and still have a human contact. But this is also not very satisfying. But this is actually why Facebook and these types of things are getting more popular, because we actually have a need to relate with another living being, to have a loving exchange, because love is that which gives maximum happiness. There is nothing which can replace love. No food can replace love, although when we don't have love we tend to eat more. But it's a very cheap replacement. It can fill your stomach but not your heart. So love is that which fills your heart, and you cannot replace it by filling your belly. So you may get some solace by eating, but it's not satisfying. But to have a human relationship, you need to sacrifice. You need to surrender to others' wishes. And that I am not willing to do, because I think that I am very much convinced about this fact that my happiness will come only by making myself happy. But as I said, that there are two ways to be happy, and that is the other way is to make another person happy. And that is what love means. So we don't have experience of that, because we have been trained from our childhood to be self-centered. The modern upbringing is very much to make one very self-centered, very egoistic, very individualistic, and that goes completely against love, because love is other-centered, not self-centered. In love, you become like a satellite which goes around the object of love. And self-centered means I want to be myself in the center, and somebody has to run over me. So mostly when we are looking for love, or we want to have loving relationship, we actually are thinking that somebody should love me. I should be the object of love. But then you are putting the choice in someone else's hands. If you have to love, then you have the choice to love or not love. But if you want to be loved, then it's not in your control. Somebody may love you or not love you. So then you become slave of somebody. So true love is very fulfilling and very satisfying. But people are very much afraid of it because of their selfish upbringing, their ego-centered life. Because they think that if I love somebody, then I will become slave of that person. Then I will become controlled by that person. I will lose my individuality. And we are very much scared. Then again saying the survival problem comes, and then how am I going to survive? But the real thing is that in true love, that's where you realize true life. Because now all this survival thing is only about the body, which will never survive anyway. This body has to come to an end one day. no matter how much you try to protect it and keep it together, it will come to an end. But you have the facility now that you can use this body and experience true love. And that true love is emanating from God. Because only a person who does not have any demands can love. Because love means no demands. And if I am myself conditioned and egocentric, then I cannot love. I can make a show of love so that I can exploit the other person in the name of love. I can say I love you, but actually I love only myself. But because I want to use somebody for my own pleasure, and that person is not going to agree if I say I love myself, but that person will agree to be exploited if I say I love you, because that person is also hungry for love. So then you throw few morsels, or not even morsels, but you show them that look, here I have something for you, I have love for you, and you are really dying for it, then you fall for it. But actually that's not love. I'm only using the word love as a bait. So just like when you have to catch a fish, so you put the hook, and hook is very hard and it is bent, not straightforward, but you cover with something very soft. So what is inside is not visible. And then fish sees this, thinks, oh, this is very nice for me, I eat it. But then as she goes to eat, she gets stuck in it and she bleeds. So this is what happens in many loving relationships. And people realize it when they get stuck, and then it's very difficult to get out of it. Of course, poor fish cannot get out, she dies. Human beings sometimes they struggle and then they can get out of it, but they have lost a lot of blood in the process. So true love is different, and that should be understood. That what is actually the love psychology. Charak is not talking so much about that. But you must understand that ultimately the purpose, as I said, of survival, of good health, of knowledge, of wealth, power, position, everything is to be happy, and that happiness is synonymous with love. There is no other happiness. All other happiness are only semblance, like you have some plastic flowers. They look very real. Sometimes you can be mistaken, but they are not real. So there may be various ways of getting happiness, but true happiness comes only from unconditional pure love, and God is personification of that love. And therefore when we love somebody, we see that person godly. We adore that person. We only see all good things in that person. But because that person is actually not like that, then after some time the veneer is removed and you see the actual reality, and then problems begin. So this of course does not mean that we should not have human relations, or we cannot have human relations. You can have it, but you have to understand, and you have to know that ultimately it is God who is behind everything. And unless you will come to realize this, you cannot be happy. It is impossible. So even when you are saying that, well, I don't agree with you, you may not agree, but wait life to come. You may have forgotten your past, but future will come. And you remember what I am saying, and then you will realize that yes, I am right. Because things change with time. And whatever you have now, you may feel very comfortable and happy with him, but it's not going to last always like this. It's not possible. Matter is always, Prakriti is always under flux. The gunas are always changing. They will not be stable. So today you may have a good sattva situation, but it will change. It may take a long time, but it is bound to change. It's not permanent. But this human life is limited, it is temporary, and we have the opportunity to learn this now. So we should not waste our time in temporary pleasures. So people also take drugs and they feel happy. It's one way of getting happiness. But taking drug means that now I want to become subhuman. We are human beings, and as human beings we can be happy in two ways. As a human being I cannot be happy. That is the curse of being a human being. So I feel happy either I become like a subhuman. So this drug, sex, intoxication, these are to make me subhuman. Means I go down. I drop my awareness to lower level. I get into forgetfulness. I hallucinate. I imagine. And the other possibility is that I elevate myself. I become superhuman. And then the happiness which you feel at that level, that is of different type and it is eternal. The happiness which you feel by taking drugs, sex, this is temporary. Everybody knows this. It doesn't last very long. And when you come out of it, then you are actually more thirsty than before. Not that you are satisfied. And then you become addicted to that. And that makes you slave. And then you suffer from it. So the other way is to go beyond it, to transcend it. And then only there is a real freedom. So real freedom comes only by transcending this nature, the gunas. And that is the facility which is available to us as human beings. That is the great fortune which we have at present. And that is the ultimate purpose of Charak Samhita. Ultimate purpose of Charak Samhita, as I have been saying, PrasannAtmEndriyaManah. So Prasanna Atma, not only Mana, not only Indriya, not only mind and senses, but yourself. And that Prasanna self, Prasanna Atma is only when it is in love. Because Atma is spiritual. Purusha is spiritual. It cannot be happy with anything material. Whether it is one's own body, mind, senses, objects, possessions, nothing. It can be happy only when it has a loving relationship with another living being and especially with the Supreme Living Being. So that is the real purpose of Charaka, that is the real meaning of Ayurvedic psychology or Vedic psychology.